Hello everyone, this is Apex, and watching the #1 ZywOo hater in the world.
You can choose. I'm just using ones that I found generated on here. I'm not going to make my own. It takes forever. CSGO in-game leaders tier list. So just IGLs, and they have the majority of them here, and I'll do who are the greatest IGLs. So for this, we've only got S, A, B, C, and D. So we're going to start at the top. It's just the most obvious, easiest way. We'll give reasons for everyone, even if they're obvious. So we'll start with Carrigan immediately. I mean, if you look, he just did it with all sorts of different teams. He did it in all sorts of different eras. He can actually call multiple styles of the game. He can be very controlling. He can use a bit more tactics like in TSM, like right now in FaZe. He can also have the FaZe super lineup where he gives them a lot of space and freedom and just mid-rounds. He can also do FaZe 2022 where he does a hybrid of the two, but he lets someone like Rain freelance, and then within that he creates the structure. You can basically do it all. Then he had the mouse with Rops and with Frozen, where he also showed he could work with different types of players, this time not even any of the actual top 5 players in the world, probably. Rops is probably like 7th best that year, for being real. So yeah, I think that he's an obvious immediate candidate. Then we'll go with Glaive. I mean, first of all, he did win all the majors and get all the accomplishments, but you watch his style. He had a very good tactical style. He was able to win with people like Kirby a bunch of tournaments. Then he could also win when he swapped up and he brought Dupree back into the playmaker role. Then he was able to win with Magisk as sort of a lurker / anchor type player. And he was also able to win when he didn't have Magisk and he had to make it work with the other players. He was able to win with devices like the best AWPer, and he was able to win with devices like, I mean, just Device is the best AWPer in general. He's pretty much always an AWPer under him. Xyp9x was probably at his best under him, you could argue. I think these two, and also the longevity, 3-4 years. I think he's both the obvious people to have in there. Then we're going to have another S tier one. I'm immediately thinking of Zeus. Zeus, good with every single type of team in this. Like, if you don't know, you can go back to like end of 2013 and he's making like half decent runs with like a scuffed Na'Vi with young Seized as a fragger, not even just a supportive element. It still had Starix in the team, I think, back then. Then he had, obviously, the lineups with Guardian, where just as he showed with Markov on 1.6, he was amazing at playing around an AWPer. That's why he could play that really slow style, but get his AWPer the picks, and then they would get in. Probably the best IGL of all time at actually getting the bomb into the site on the red numbers and getting the bomb planted with an amazing amount of consistency. People like James just copied from this fucker. Like, this guy actually was, because he had dominant AWPers, he was the guy who understood the meta of how to play CIS Counter-Strike. Some of it he pioneered in 1.6. He took some of it, obviously, from the progenitors, the Pauls in ESC /FX Pentagram, Neo and Taz. But he really did a lot with it. He had an amazing track record. I think he was in something like 6 finals of majors in 1.6 and 1.4. And this is a CSGO list. I'm just pointing out his longevity. And if you don't know, in CSGO, he was in like 4 finals or something and won one of them. Won the one with Gambit, obviously. So easily S tier for me. Immediately into that category. Also fabulous. Like, it's funny, his teams often didn't have a great win rate on Inferno, but his T-side calling on Inferno is some of the best you'll ever see. His push and pull dynamic is fucking phenomenal. And the way he just, I mean, that's even a map where people now don't even want to AWP on T-side. Astralis was barely AWPing on T-side with Device. This guy always used his AWPer very effectively on that map. Absolutely sick player as an IGL. And by the way, there's a time period where before these guys came on top, I used to have mine as like Existence and this guy. Then I'm looking at the other names. So the ones I'm already thinking of immediately are, I have to consider Prodax. He did win 3 majors, one with an underpowered lineup. A lot of it was him doing mid-rounds at times, even if he had very good players. I'm also thinking of Existence. Again, we're only talking about IGLs here. We're not talking about trophy cabinets. I think one of the best IGLs of all time. I mean, the story goes, even in 2019 in Gamer Legion, when they beat that Furia team at MuchXL, people still said in that team, he's fucking unbelievable. Like, you don't know his mind for the game. Why did we kick him? Blah, blah, blah. Every team that's ever been in, people don't really know why they kicked him. It was usually like, oh, he was too stern, or, you know, we didn't believe in him at majors or whatever. If you ask about his actual IGL, and fucking unbelievable. And actually, he had pretty scuffed rosters after the first couple of years. From 2015 onwards, he's working with limited rosters because of the Kaylee ban, then stupidly bringing RPK back. He never should have brought RPK back, by the way. What he should have done was recruited Scream and acknowledged that Scream isn't going to be a cerebral player, but he's such a great piece of firepower that he'd give you a chance to win again, but they didn't do it. If they'd have actually had Scream next to Kenny S and Apex in that team could have cooked and won majors majors, by the way. So I think that's a sad one, but that's a career decision. I actually think as an IGL, he did a very good job. With that said, can he be an S tier? I mean, he did fail the majors. He did well at some prestige events, but not tons. I'll maybe put him in A tier for now. But I'm already thinking this might be my only S tier. Because similarly, I do think Pronax had, along with Nitro and then Huxley, I think he had one of the best lineups of players I've ever seen. He had an unbelievable... Remember, Pronax had Prime Olafmeister, but before Prime Olafmeister, he had Crims, who was like fragging out of his mind as a fucking small site anchor. He had JW, who was winning MVPs. Then Olafmeister became sick, and he still had like Flusher going ham at majors and at big... He had a fucking unbelievable roster of players. But for me, he was never truly S tier. I never saw him as like the actual tactical mastermind. I thought he was really good at mid-rounding, had some good ideas on how to set up a team, and also, I think, allowed people like the Olaf Meissens a lot of freedom to do what they wanted. And then in pieces like Flusher and Crims, those are some of the most stable pieces you can actually ever get in Counter-Strike. Very consistent pieces that can fill in the blanks. So I think Pronax gets to go A tier. Now there's a load that are going to be hella overrated, like Gob B. There's a load we can go with here. So for the rest of A tier, like Alexi B could be in there. The problem he has is he doesn't have that many years of LAN, remember. He has like what? Let's say about half a year in ENCE in 2018, some of it not in the biggest tournaments. Then he has 2019, so that's about a year. I mean, it's more like 3/4 of a year. So let's say at the moment he's on like a year and a half in my brain. Or a year and a quarter. Then he came back and he had the G2 period, which was all right. So like 2-3 months there. So we're getting close to 2 years worth. Then he had 2023, which was a little bit sus in NIP, but he wasn't terrible, just wasn't a great team. And then he eventually got to Na'Vi. They got pretty good. But the problem is we're only really talking like 3 years maybe, calling. Do you already get to be an A for that? Because remember, we're not counting CS2. This is CSGO. CSGO in-game leaders. So I think he probably actually has to go on B tier for that. But we'll think about that. We can obviously readdress these ones later, can't we? Then who else are we going for? I mean, since we're already on B, we can consider Fallen. There's one you have to consider. Happy actually might even need to be in, should he be in A tier? The problem is you don't actually, in my opinion, as in-game leader, get to count being a fragger. Which sounds weird because on the one hand, people like Happy and even at times Glaive, it could actually make more effective leaders. Fallen's obvious example. In fact, I think Fallen was more skills than it was in-game leading. It can obviously help in that sense, but this is just purely as an in-game leader. I don't think it should probably count the fragging angle. I feel like that's not fair if we do. So if we're going purely off calling style, I actually still think he's either in B or A. We'll put him in B for now, but I do think he was right. In 2014, 2015, he did break the meta. And the other teams didn't have an answer. And his team could even actually beat, I mean, famously, he could beat TSM all day long. They could beat all sorts. It was only basically the Prime Fnatic they couldn't beat until they swapped over to the roster with Kenny Essin. So I'm going to put him B for now. He was actually good. Exist, I'm not going to put super high. Like, for now, I'm actually going to start Exist on C, because I think he just did, like, look, he did call the right loose style, but a lot of his was fragging and being clutch, etc. I don't really know that he was a genius IGL. I like the way Moddy's there. Fair enough, okay. Is that Moddy or Mezzy? To be fair, they look very similar. They actually do look very similar. Blade, the problem is, did do a really old school style. Really old school style. That probably doesn't deserve to be high up. Like, I would maybe put Blade like B tier because it was a bit more limited. Look, some of these people are a little bit more limited to some degree, these two primarily. Thinking B for now. He is a genius, but I just don't think in CSGO he always had the right style. And I'll give him props. He played with a lot of different types of players. He had Electronic, he had Early Simple, he had Flamey. He had a bunch of people who were very skilled. It's just that I think Zeus was the better IGL in CSGO. I think who else are we considering here? Apex barely was an IGL and CSGO, so we're not really counting him. Fallen probably should already be on the board somewhere. The problem with the Neo and Taz one is, it's actually quite hard to remember which events they IGL'd at, so I probably wouldn't give either of them a high mark for that. And actually, Neo doesn't even look like he's here. Is Neo not on this list? The problem is people just won't know that they swapped around IGL positions, that's the issue. Oh, MSL. Right, MSL. this is where it's going to get interesting, because a bunch of these people I might have to move. MSL at a minimum is B. He might actually, at his peak, be A. He might actually be in this category here. I mean, you look at, he was always working with lesser talents, except for like maybe 6 months in North/Dignitas, and then, no, that's about it. Because then after that, along came Heroic, who took players, and then Astralis just kept hoarding the best players. Yeah, I think I might have to, I might even be able to put him here. Like, as a pure IGL, Alexi B might be better. But this guy, his system was just really good. It was really good. I might put him here for now. I might risk putting him there for now. Then we'll go down. Fallen should probably get on the list sometime soon. So the problem is, which Fallen am I talking about? Because one, I do think at this point in time that you have the Fallen in 2015 was good with bad players as an IGL. The Fallen in, like, they were really good in numbers advantage situations. The Fallen in 2016 was pretty good, but part of that was his fragging style, the fact he could play aggressively. He had really good anchor elements like FNX, hanging back tackle, and then also he had Cold Zera doing secondary calls based on what he was doing in the latter part of the round. So I do feel he gets a bit overrated, and then once you get beyond 2017, so 2018 onwards, I think he's just lost in the meta. So if we're going all time, right, the problem here as well is this. If we're doing peak would be way more interesting. Like, the actual peak would be different. If we're going for their whole careers, Fallen probably has to be... I'll put him here for now, but I might even move him down to C. Because think about it, that's only 2015, but with lesser teams, but he was making playoffs and majors. 2016, that's like 3 years. But then again, people like Alexi didn't get to do that much at majors generally. I don't know, that's a tough one. We're also going with, like, Snappy, Cadian. Where's Cadian? Is this real life? Is Cadian really not on this list? Am I missing something? Fucking hell. So Cadian's just, oh, there he is. And it's also because they got these old jerseys on. Like, I don't even know who that is. Is that the guy, like, from fucking Entropic? Or is that like a Portuguese guy? I can't see what the jersey is. Is there no way to make it bigger? Who the fuck knows? I mean, it doesn't matter. He's never going to get on this list anyway. Like, that wouldn't even be in D. I don't even know why some of these people are on here. Like, Ben Tet's on here. Why? Whatever. Just whatever, innit? Who else can we look for here, though? So we'll go Cadian now. Again, I'm not taking the Orpin, so it's purely as an IGL. And even though now I know some things about his system, I do think he deserves status, though. Like, I think I'll say he was B tier. The problem is, at times I thought he was A, but that was only really the last year. And I do think he sort of wasted it. I'll put him B. I think that's very fair, by the way. I mean, I might even end up moving people down, but I think that's very fair to have him here so far. Huxley is not going to get high marks from me. Taco, Golden, Hunden, Snappy. Again, Snappy, you have to remember, was only really cooking like a year and a half. Blame F was more about fragging, always was never a great IGL. JT was just a good IGL, wasn't an amazing one. Remember, if I'm putting Exist on C, some of these cunts don't even get to be on the list. Like, that's just how it goes, mate. Like, maybe I'll say God B on B as well. If there's too many people on B, I will split them along A and C, so we'll do that in a minute. But God B can go on B for now. I do think it took him a while to get going. I think his actual understanding meta wasn't too hot in the early days. And then if you're talking 2017 onwards, 2017 to 19, yeah, he's doing a pretty good job. Actually, it's more like scuffed aspects of the team and dickheads like Smoothie coming in and out, and Next just not ever knowing what sports psychology is or cracking a fucking book open. It's just bollocks like that. Santara's only come in for the brief, like, what, 1 year or something, and then the online period stopping them ever being able to use him. So maybe God B, there's a world if he'd had a year or two more, maybe he even could have crept into A, but I'm going to put him B for now. Does he really get to be above his Exist? Probably. I think that's probably fair. Snappy also, I think for now we'll put him in C, but he could be B. He could be B, couldn't he? Alex, I actually thought was doing a pretty good job. I'll maybe put him B for now. We're gonna move some of the Bs around in a minute, because at the moment we can see Bs where everyone's just defaulting to, aren't they? I never thought Golden was that mega personally. Right, this is a tricky one. Because technically, in-game leader does literally say in-game, but it's not like you physically join the game. It's your computer joins. And so if you're in the voice chat, that is sort of in-game as well. And Starix, when he was the in-game leader of Na'Vi, was a really good IGL. Like, I would put him in A tier. He not only made Flamey really good, that was the year when they almost won the MLG Columbus. They could have won loads of tournaments that year. Loads. DreamHack Malmore. They could obviously, they had one counter pit. They could have won fucking Cologne as well. I would have loved to have seen that. What's sad about that tournament, if people don't know, is you had all the amazing matchups, but Simple ruined them all by being the GOAT. Which is, you should have had Na'Vi beats Liquid, then Na'Vi plays Fnatic. That's a classic matchup. Fnatic usually wins. If Na'Vi beats Fnatic, then it's Na'Vi SK in the final. Na'Vi used to beat SK, but now they're rivals that go back and forth. If Fnatic beats Na'Vi, you get Fnatic SK in the final. SK had never beaten Fnatic in a LAN BO3 series. You'd have a chance for SK to beat them. You would have had all-time marquee matchups. But instead, Simple just came and upset the party because he was just fucking goated, wasn't he? So Starix can be right up there. I might even say that he was S tier when he was able to do it at the top level. It's just the problem is it was only for like a year and a half. So I think I'd probably have to put him A for the whole career. And after that, he obviously wasted. He was actually in an early Team Spirit lineup, if people don't know. Even though, by the way, I can tell you, I talked to people for him. He had offers in America. He could have been in like a Cloud9 or a Team Liquid maybe. And just chose not to for whatever reason. Is there anyone else I actually even value on this list, by the way? Like, the idea Stewie 2K is even on here is a fucking joke. I do think Taz was a decent leader, but if I put him here, what am I really doing at that point in time? Like, I'll move a bunch of the Bs in a second, I think. I'll see if there's anyone else I'm putting on here, though. Who even is that on Dignitas? Like, is that fucking the player Infinite or something? Who is it? Who the fuck is that? Who is that? It looks like Cajun B bred with someone in Dignitas. Who the fuck is that? So people are just trolling putting this guy on. What a fucking waste of time. Jame wasn't really that good in my opinion. But I guess he did win a CSGO major. I'm going to put him C for now. Boomich probably shouldn't even be on here. I mean, he barely even played CSGO as an IGL. Think about it. He only had, what? Roughly a year of LAN. Or maybe put him C. Maybe he should even be D. I never thought he was a great IGL. I don't think he did. I think actually here's a hot take for you. I think Electronic probably already made a bunch of calls along with Simple in that team. And so it wasn't really just Boomich and Blade. It was Blade plus all the others. Nitro should obviously be somewhere. I actually think what people always forget is the latter 2017 into 2018 year. That's when he got to show off his chops, and he probably was a B tier IGL. So we're going to move some of these people now. Don't worry about that. Tabson. Never quite saw the execution that much for me from Tabson, so I'll maybe even put him C, because I'm not counting as a fragger. I think him being a fragger was immensely part of what made it work as an IGL. Hooksy. Daps. I'm going to put him C for now because I do think he sort of choked under pressure and I did punish existence for that. I do think as an actual caller, he might actually be a better caller than some of these people in this list. Then again, Alex only really did it for like a year though, didn't he? Like he wasn't bad in Fnatic. Maybe Alex should come down as well. But if he comes down, who else comes down? That's the question. Like, are there really only 3 S-tier IGLs in the history of CSGO? That does feel a bit reductive. Surely there's a 4th person can join that list. Let's see who else I haven't put, though. I think I've got pretty much everyone I need off this list at the bottom. I don't think any of these people actually deserve to be on. Stanislaw. He's more of a C tier for me. I don't know on that one, actually, because he can be a good caller. The problem is, in many ways, it's why he replaces Daps. He is the opposite of Daps. He's actually not that good at building up a team or keeping a team together or structure. Like, what they do is he builds them up and gets them really good. He takes over, wins. They maybe even win a bunch and have a high ceiling. Then immediately the team just drops out the team because he doesn't have the personality and the charisma to be a leader. And then eventually the odds wither on the vine and then he starts over again when Daps built another project up. Steele's just overrated. I mean, he just never actually had that much chance to do it, did he? So he would probably be C. Let's see. Apex just didn't call that for a long enough time period for my money. Let me think. Because he had the latter part of 2021. He had 2022, which was a bit sus. He had most part of 2020. Maybe he can be C. He can be C as well. I think we've got everyone now. I don't think anyone else actually deserves to be. Like, Nafani's just not a particularly good IGL, in my opinion. Asa wasn't that great. He was just all right. So most of these are trolls anyway. Asilion wasn't bad. We never got to the top level. Lecro wasn't really an IGL. I don't even know why. Is that Rubino? I've no idea why he's on there. Wasn't even aware he was an IGL. FNS wasn't bad, actually. Like, FNS, I actually feel like should probably be on C. It's just his career means he probably has to be D. But if you want just pure calling, I wasn't surprised he went to Valorant and was like cracked out for 2 years. And his whole style, by the way, was like mid-round calling and adapting to the other team and reading them. He always was a very competent player. Remember, the reason he's in the Cloud9 jersey is I told them when they let Stewie 2K stupidly go, just fucking sign FNS and let him have control of the team. But sadly, I've heard Tarek didn't like the way he ran things. So he got booted after, what, like 2.5 months or something stupid after a big buyout. So whatever that shit was. So am I putting anyone else here? Where does Huxley get to go? I think it's hating too much to put Huxley D. Maybe he has to go C. But he didn't actually have that long though, did he? We're only really talking like about 1.5 years. But he did win big tournaments. Not that he did it all, but I think you have to at least consider that as a factor. Let's see. Like, I'm not doing it as a heavy one, but I do think he was able to get those players together and win in a way. So some of these other IGLs wouldn't have won with those players, by the way. I'm just going to say it right now. I think that's everyone. I think I've got everyone I care about there. So now we're just going to move them around a little bit. So is there anyone I'm moving down immediately? Am I moving anyone down? Because part of the reason why Steel even gets to be here is I do think it was, put it this way, when ESL had that old format for DreamHacks and ESL events where the opening round is a BO1, or you're in a GSL group stage where the opening game's a BO1 like DreamHacks as well, his teams had an insane record at winning that opening BO1, which shows that, like, I do think he could call a very good game. He just didn't have anywhere close to the play. They've been beating people like fucking Navi, if you don't know. They can be there. If you notice, I'm purposely being very harsh. I think there should be way more people in B and C than S and A. If you just put loads in S and A, then what even was the point of the tier list? You're not differentiating between them. I do think, like, for example, in terms of pure calling, Existence can join this list up here. But maybe even Starix could. But I'm also then factoring the longevity. How do I think they worked with different teams? Is there anyone from here I would actually put up? Promise, if I'm doing their whole careers, I also could have moved Happy down a bit. If you look from 2016, 2017 onwards, not really that great. I could also have moved him down into B. Because if we're talking pure tactics, that's the issue. Is fragging was a big part of what made him a very good IGL. That's a tough one. Like, if I'm moving him down, do I really keep Cadian up? Thing is, I'm going to value actual calling very highly here, not just what you do with players that work with your still, all that shit. I think it's, as a caller, that's why Existence gets to be so high. MSL gets to be so high. You deserve to be given credit for your call. Maybe I'll put him down one. Just because we're talking about the whole career. Surely there can't be this many in C. Surely one more person should join D. Nitro, I don't think Nitro can go up. Fallen, not a longevity. Alexi could have, but he didn't really have enough chances on LAN. Got B, Taz. Is there anyone I'm moving down? I think that's actually a very fair list. I think this is a really well done list. Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scrominati, who, in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadjou, Matt Pugnatio, Rajcula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Tooorin, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are. Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.